spaces.
Do you think there's already? Yeah.
I missed you there. You had a
No,
little bit
go.
of a glitch. So I was going to say, I think there's lots of spaces to go. The first thing is, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but TikTok, it's there. There's not a lot of gaming creators on TikTok. And when I say gaming creators, I'm not talking, and I'm going to upset a lot of streamers right now and people that are on TikTok. I'm not talking about taking a clip from YouTube or taking a stream clip and just posting it up there. I'm talking about actual real gaming creators. I've seen some incredible folks overseas who do like real life kind of joking TikToks where they try and be a gaming character, and that's their thing, and they're getting a great audience. And I feel like there is space for gaming creators on new platforms like TikTok. South Africans tend to be a little bit slow, and then when we go on, we just share stream highlights. We're not really doing creative stuff. I think the only person I know right off the top of my head, and I'm not on TikTok, so forgive me, but I mean, there's a friend of mine, Shani ZA, who does a lot of fun gaming stuff on there and has a really good following. Yeah. But we need more. I think that there's space for more fun gaming creators on TikTok. And I also think that there's space to look a little bit outside of the norm. So we tend to go, this is Twitch. We see everyone overseas streaming on Twitch, but we need to remember where we live. And this is for the whole African continent. Twitch is difficult. It lags. Like, it costs a lot of data. It just drains your phone data. So maybe look at other options. Facebook Live is a great place for mobile gaming. There's incredible mobile gaming streamers there. We don't see a lot of South Africans using the platform the way I think that they could. I think that there's space for really cool short format content on the likes of Twitter and Instagram. So I definitely think that the gaming scene allows you to find a space anywhere. But for me, the biggest suggestion when you're looking at the scene right now is stop trying to do what everyone else is doing. Find something that's different. When I started, it was blogging. No one was really blogging. And blogging was kind of, there was all the gaming media and then really like blogging. I did the blogging thing. I wasn't like a serious journalist. And I just gave my opinion. And that kind of worked. At the time, no one was doing that. So that's my thing, is find something that you love to do, whether it be writing, making videos, talking, podcasts, but then just do something different. You don't, just because something works overseas doesn't mean you have to copy it, because we already have Ali A or Ninja. We don't need another one. Be unique and find that opportunity.
That's such a great point. And it's ironic we talk about how certain things don't work well in certain spaces, like data. I mean, like now my internet's going up and down, so I'm kind of missing. I'm missing a few things, as we can tell. So apologies for that. But I think it's such a good point that you make in terms of trying to see what works for the market that you're in, and actually looking at where your audience is. I mean, I remember seeing on Twitter, people talking about, oh, everyone needs to be on Twitch, guys. Like, find people on Twitch. Like, just watch people on Twitch. Like, go to Twitch, be supportive. And I kind of went, but guys, keep in mind, like, if you look at the landscape that we're in, not everybody can access Twitch easily, right? To the point you mentioned around, the data and the cost and the lag and all of those things. And I think also, just as you were saying as well, the idea of like find your niche, like find who you are and focus on that. I think that's like a huge point. And it really also leads into what I wanted to sort of talk to you about next, and I think you've almost answered that, is developing local talent, right? How do we kind of build the scene and make the space? And I think you've kind of answered that a lot. I mean, I don't know if there's anything you want to add specifically on that angle around how do we develop and foster talent? How do we make open up and make gaming a lot more accessible, and make it a space for more content creators to come in, bring in fresh ideas, bring in fresh blood?
So this is always a difficult one for me to answer. When I came in, things like YouTube and Twitch didn't exist yet. So it was, you had websites and they did gaming news. And then this blogger came in who started throwing her opinion around, and everyone was like, whoa, we don't like that. Don't come here with that. That's not how we do things. And I struggled in the beginning because no one wanted me there. Everyone made it very clear that I wasn't welcome, and because change is scary, right? So when someone comes in and does something different that you don't understand, it's scary. So I do think if you're a content creator and you're into gaming and this is where you want to play, you have to understand that when you come in, no one's going to look at you and be like, yes, okay, everyone's going to help you. We're going to all give you legs up. We're all going to, no one's really going to do that. One, they either don't know you exist, and in which case they're not around, or two, they're terrified because you're different. So I think that the biggest lesson for me that I had to learn, and that I hope others will learn, is that no one's going to do it for you. It's super hard work. You're going to spend a lot of your own money on it. Your friends are going to hate you because you're going to spend all your time doing it. But you need to be able to put in that work yourself, and that is how you do it. And then also, it's such a terrible term, but in terms of networking, that does help. But you have to the networking as it is now, because the the market is so saturated with young people wanting to do this. I think people need to understand what networking is. And it comes back to your content as well. Everything comes back to being authentic. So if your content's authentic and you found something that you love to do, that you know your friends enjoy, that you're answering a question, like this was something I learned a long time ago. Someone said, always ask yourself, why do people care? And if you can't answer that without putting your name in it, then it's probably not something people care about. So the first thing is, why would people care? But then the second thing is, from a networking point of view, is talking to people, and not talking to them because you want something. Just go and find other creators that are doing things that are cool, not necessarily things that you're doing, just things that you think are cool. And they don't have to be in the gaming space. Chat to them, learn from them. If they're a photographer, go chat to them, find out what they're doing. That's networking. They might not be able to give you $1 gazillion, but they might tell you how to fix your lighting for cheap, which is going to help your content. So it really comes down to playing in that space, talking to people. And again, that should actually be already happening, because if you want to be a content creator, you're probably engaging around there as it is. So the very long answer, but to basically give you the short answer of what you asked, we can't rely on other people to build the space for us. We can't rely on other people to welcome us in, because they won't. Yeah. So we've got to do it ourselves. And that really just comes back to chatting to people, making friends. Authenticity will help you grow. It's not a diverse space at the moment. It is very locked out. That does need to change. And I do think a lot of people in the space are calling for it in the ways that they know how. But I think if you're coming in, you need to understand that everyone is terrified of anything new. So I understand that they just got to get a little bit of time. I always say they'll keep you outside the room, but if you just keep banging on the door, they'll eventually let you in. You'll have to stand in the corner, and they'll all go crowd in the other corner, but you'll get in the room eventually. I know, because I did it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that actually brings up, a really good point, that it's not all easy. And I think people often see, a lot of the success that you've had, and people are like, yeah, you worked hard, but I don't think people obviously also see like the difficult sides of it, and the difficult sides of the career, and doing content creation. I mean, you started to touch on that in terms of saying, you have to spend your own money, and you have to spend a lot of it at times, and that you don't often get to see your friends because there's a lot of content you have to create. So I think, bringing it back, and not to say, this is not the space to be in, because I think, we all love what we do, and I think that's why we're here. But it's always good to talk about like some of the difficulties. So I think for you, for someone that's done so much, and really gone really far in your career, what have been some of the difficult times?
So I think that the thing for me that's always been difficult, and I do think that there's a lot of young people who can relate as well, is that if you don't look the same as everyone else in the room, they tend to exclude you. So when I started, I was a female, which meant I didn't look the same as all the boys, because it was all boys at that stage. So that was a little bit scary for them. And then I was doing blogging, which wasn't what everyone else was doing. So I think looking different, whether it be, your race or your gender or your sexual preference, is always a difficult thing. That was a very difficult thing for me to overcome. I think it's got better over time, but it still needs a lot. That was the thing for me that was hard. And then the second thing that was really difficult for me is resources, because it's all well and good to say, go create content. But when I started, I did not have the super expensive camera. I still actually don't. I didn't have any sort of understanding of how hosting a website works and how much it costs. No one tells you that. They give you the price at the beginning. You set up your website, and then 3 months later, they come and tell you that you've got too many pictures and you actually have to upgrade, and suddenly everything's really expensive. So some of the things to overcome are definitely understanding that the cost to start is difficult. And a lot of people jump in and tell you that if you're going to do this, you must do it properly. So you have to spend 20 grand on this camera and buy this ring lights and whatever. But I really want to tell people, don't do that. When you start, do what you can on your phone. Phones are really good, but get a feel for what you like, what works for you. Because that was the mistake that I made in the beginning as well. Like, I spent a lot of my spare cash, because I was obviously working at the same time, like a lot of my spare cash on gear that people told me. So when I started, everyone was like, you need a DSLR camera. So I went and I scrounged and I bought the secondhand DSLR camera, which I still have, which I still cannot use. I cannot get it to do what I want. It drives me insane. But that was the thing, because everyone said you need this camera. So I went and got the camera, and it wasn't a video camera. So the video work I did, it was a disaster, because every time the lens focused, it made this horrible noise.
I can imagine.
Yeah, which I didn't know. And then the second thing was, it didn't have proper mics. So I bought all this gear and it doesn't work. So I think for me, the most important thing is, when you start, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Do stuff on your phone. If it's good, believe it or not, if it's good, People don't care
Yeah.
if it's a grainy video or the sound's a little bit off in the beginning. They don't actually care. So you can get a feel for what works, and then you can decide what gear you need or how much money you have to spend. But I'm always scared when I hear of someone who just jumped in and blew money on everything that they got told by some YouTuber that they
it really does broaden your horizon when you get to be in a different space and see how other people work in different countries and different cultures. So I mean, is there anything, like any learnings from that you'd love to bring back and go like, guys, this is something that I thought that's really cool that I would never have thought of at the time, but because you've been traveling and you've seen a lot more, there's some interesting nuggets of insights there?
So I think what's interesting about overseas is obviously from a size perspective, content creators, their audiences are so much bigger than we can ever imagine. And I don't even think some of our big, maybe like a Maps Mokonyane is at that level. But even then, he's like small fry overseas. Hey? Like he would be low on the level of content creators. And I think the thing that I learned from them and from a lot of the guys that I've been really lucky to meet some successful content creators over there. What I learned from them is that, one, you are running your own race. This is not a race against anyone else. Create content is so different. So you cannot compare yourself to anyone else because you are not the same. And there sometimes is a problem where you do compare because you don't understand why that person has more followers or why they're getting brand deals or whatever else. You don't understand how the brand is thinking. You don't understand what the person is thinking. You have no concept of what that relationship is. So it's not even worth it because you'll never figure it out. So run your own race. And also, too, the most important thing that I see from overseas, which is a little bit different here, because here we are much smaller. So we are very reliant on brand money. If you're a content creator, you're reliant on those brand deals and those influencer gigs to pay the bills. Overseas, they're not. They've been able to build platforms, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, where their advertising revenue actually pays their bills. The brand deals are just a nice extra. And because of that, they have a certain respect for themselves. And I know I was guilty of this for many years. I used to fall for this trap, and many others do, where we kind of sell out and change our style and our personality because a brand tells us to, or a brand tells us to do a piece of content that we know won't work, but we do it because you don't want to upset the brand. And that's what we're told by everyone else. What I learned from overseas is the money side of it needs to go. The only thing that you should ever be asking yourself is the question that I mentioned before: why does anyone care? And also, is my community going to benefit from this? How do they benefit? What is it that they can get? And focus on your community first. People who say, oh, but I want to impress this brand, or I want to get more followers, or I want to be famous, you're doing it all wrong. It should really just be about, I want to create something freaking cool for me. And if other people like it, even better.
Yeah. No, that's great, and I think that's a great point to wrap up. Virtual Backstage is telling us to close it off. But Sam, honestly, I always enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming on and to really share a lot of the insights that you have, and your knowledge on the space. I think you've done you've done amazing things, and I'm a massive fan. So thank you for taking the time to chat to us around this. Guys, I mean, there's a lot of talks around this kind of stuff. I think the Africa Games Esports Careers Day is a really, really good and important initiative to have, because I think these are the kind of conversations we want to be having, and to really like give people all that information beforehand so they don't have to make the same mistakes that we did going into these things.
That's the plan.
So yeah,
that's the plan.
That's the hope. That's the dream. We'll just go better and do bigger and better things. So yeah, guys, there's a lot of amazing talks that are coming up, and a lot of really, really great panels as well. I mean, I'll be back here as well chatting. So guys, stay tuned. I mean, I think one of the key takeouts that Sam mentioned here as well is networking. Like, guys, just chat and just support one another. And I think that's really the thing that's going to drive this thing. So guys, thank you very much. Sam, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Sam. Really insightful conversation you guys had there. And Sam, I love what you said about just getting it out. I think it's one of the most important things for anyone to have a takeout from today's sessions. Is just get stuff out there and get some feedback and make it work. We're moving into esports now, and the next panel is going to be a discussion around how to play in the fastest growing sport in the world. Yes, esports is the fastest growing sport in the world, and we have Nick Holden from ACGL hosting this panel. It's one of our pre-recorded panels, and here we go with Nick.
All right. Hi there, everybody, and welcome to Africa Games and Esports Career Day taking place with rAge 2020. Today, we have an exciting panel where we're going to be talking about how to play in the fastest growing sports in the world. And I think this is relating, of course, to esports for some of you who might not know. And we've got some fantastic panelists all the way from around Africa, it has to be said. And starting things off with, we've got Yusuf Mohsen, founder of Anubis Gaming, here today. Yusuf, if you want to give everybody a wave on your side of things.
Hello.
There we go. And then we've also got Giulio Beast Bianchi. He's a FIFA player for Goliath Gaming.
Hi, guys.
Fantastic. And we've also got Chue Shabukali, who's the co-founder of Team Geometrics. And next
Hi,
up,
everyone.
there we go. And next up, we have Gabriel Romacocho, founder of Ikasi Esports, joining us here today. So we've got a lot of team owners, and there we go. There's Gabriel. And we've got one professional player with an asterisk to it because he's doing just so much more than just being a professional player in his own rights. And one of the things I just want to start with is brief introductions of the individuals that are here with us today. So Yusuf, starting with yourself, do you mind giving us a base introduction of who you are in this esports environment?
Hi, my name is Yusuf Mohsen. I started Anubis Gaming, the Middle East's first, North Africa's first professional esports team. I started back in 2015 because I was watching, I was studying in Spain at the time, and I was watching Worlds, and they were showing up all the different teams coming from Asia, the US, EU, South America, all of these places. And there was this region that was in dark black that they were trying to avoid, and that was the Middle East and Africa. So I took that as sort of a slap in the face for all gamers in the region, and I decided it was my responsibility to help gamers from all around Africa and the Middle East to reach the world and international stages.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Yusuf, from your side of things. And then heading across to Giulio, do you mind doing the same for us there?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, it's a huge honor for me to be here. My name is Giulio Bianchi. I'm 22 years old, and I'm a professional esports player for Goliath Gaming. I'm also a third-year accounting student, and I help out a lot in the esports scene with coaching and many other things. But yeah, also qualified for the World Cup in 2018, and yeah, just getting started.
Thank you so much, Giulio. A very exciting player in his own right, and an absolute pleasure to be able to watch him play FIFA from time to time whenever we get the opportunity. Heading across to Chulwe from your side of things, Team Geometrics. Do you mind giving us a little bit more of a breakdown?
My name is Chole Shabukali, and I am the managing director of Team Geometrics. Team Geometrics is Zambia's first electronic sports team, and we primarily focus on building our organization with players and hosting tournaments here and there for ourselves, for the community, and for companies that we partner with. So basically, we've been in the esports scene since 2018, and we've won about 5 Sub-Saharan Africa tournaments in Mortal Kombat and Injustice 2. Our brand has competed, our players have basically competed on the Southern African region in South Africa and in Kenya as well, in the Eastern Africa region. We've also participated in the US and Ireland, to mention a few.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cholwe. I mean, I have to say testament to Cholwe and their team for their Mortal Kombat and Injustice players, some fantastic players with some of the biggest characters in the scene. And that's what we love, to be able to see them stand out in their own right. Heading over to essentially a South African organization with what I think is one of the best logos in the biz. It's Gabriel from Ikasi. Do you mind giving us a brief introduction?
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for this opportunity to be with you guys today. My name is Gabriel Rabukocho, and I am the founder and CEO of Ikasi Esports. Basically, we're an esports organization, an MGO that has players in CS:GO and FIFA. We just recently signed a FIFA player. And we've been around since 2017, and we've pretty much done work with different partners in the industry, both government and non-government institutions, private sector, and so forth. And we pretty much looking forward to work in this growing industry to ensure that there is inclusiveness in it. More so having young black gamers to be part of this industry. So that is one of our main objectives of having to start the organization. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it's great to have you here as a part of Africa Games and Esports Career Day, taking place, of course, with rAge. And from my side of things, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nick Holden. I'll be your host here today. And essentially what we're going to be talking about is the realistic side of esports, the job opportunities and the job not so opportunities from time to time. And one of the things I want to touch upon, because maybe it's a little bit of an unfamiliar side from my level, is that we're usually dealing with sub-Saharan African esports from our end. And Yusuf, you're not necessarily in that bracket. So I just want to maybe see if you could give us a little bit of a landscape of how is esports growing? Is this something that people can turn into a professional career at multiple levels, whether that's as an organization owner or as a player?
Well, back in 2015, when we started, if you had asked me that question, I would have honestly told you it's not possible at all, since there was no support from anywhere, including publishers, sponsors, the government, and the teams as a whole. Ever since that time, we've done everything we can to sort of put esports on the map when it comes to like a proper sector. In 2017, we traveled to the World Championships, the IESF World Championships, and we were the first African team or Middle Eastern team to make it to the top four. The three teams above us were South Korea, China, and Taipei, which are considered three of the best. We were able to reactivate our local federation, along with helping them build proper tournaments and leagues to support local esports players. And a year later, the publishers started to come in. They started supporting us as Egypt and North Africa. And right now, we're challenging for a regional title in Valorant, League of Legends, and we just won our Crossfire regional championship. So things are looking very good, since in both the League of Legends and Valorant championships, there's a chance that we might be able to participate in the biggest global championships for both games. So right now in 2020, it is legitimate for you to choose esports as a career path, whether you're a player or a founder, but you need to be realistic. If you're a player and you want to become a professional, you must be realistic with yourself and you must understand your level. Thankfully, in esports, there's a ranking system in every single esport game. FIFA, League of Legends, Valorant, all these games have a ranking system. If you see yourself having a high rank and all that you're missing is either teammates or proper internet, proper hardware, all of these things, then it's very easy to find that out, and it's very easy for that to be clear to you. And on the founder side, or people who want to start teams, they need to understand how hard and painful it is to actually raise a team. It's not just bringing all these skillful players together, but it's also bringing all these skillful people together. So you need to understand that you're responsible not only to have a team with the best players, but a team with the best people. So in both scenarios, it's extremely difficult, but at least right now it's possible.
Fantastic. That's really, really good to hear. And I think just being able to have that many opportunities for your teams to be able to compete on that European level is absolutely awesome. And being able to see how you guys are progressing is inspiring. It has to be said for the rest of Africa. I mean, we all demographically face different challenges. Us in sub-Saharan Africa, unfortunately, due to us having to play on mostly European connections from time to time, means that we're constricted in terms of our play. And Cholwe, you must know that from your players and your side of things. But the question I really want to ask from your side, Cholwe, being in Zambia, is this something that's been taken seriously amongst the general community there when it comes down to esports as a defined career path?
No, it's not been taken seriously. It's still been taken like a hobby per se, either by the community itself, most of the players, and also by generally society. So esports in Zambia is fairly new. We were the first esports team in 2018, and all the tournaments that had been happening were like a group of friends coming together and hosting a big tournament at the hall or something from organizations like Nedo Taco, for example. So it's still something that's in its infancy phase, but for us as Team Geometrics, being pioneers, we kind of take it as a responsibility to try and do whatever we can to create a base foundation for that. So we'll be launching a club in schools very soon, so that we can kickstart the foundation of trying to make it a viable solution for career consideration by the community and society.
That's fantastic. And the move to go into schools, is that just to focus on the long term? And is that something that your organization plays into its big focus of being pioneers, saying, hey, we're not in here for the short term, we're here for the long term? And why is that move for schools so important to you?
It's so important to me as a founder because when we look at our right now, the base of players in Zambia is players between the ages of 20 to 30, right? So which means there's a problem there because every time we go to tournaments, so is the same people. So we've noticed that there's a gap between the young players and the players who are actually active in the esports right now. So the other thing that's happening is there are little to no tournaments where players can actually play weekly, except from SCGL and Metro State that they play with online. But they don't have any locals where they can actually test their skills with each other and be more stronger. And also for a team, we also look at where we're going to find the next talent that's going to be in our organization and which other titles can we expand into. So it's also about us laying that foundation and considering the long-term perspective of how we can build our organization and also pitching and do what we can to help build the community as well. So that's why the schools are one of our solutions to that, because everyone has to pass through the process of school, and we can also channel the other, we can also let people know that you can't just be a player in esports. You can be an organizer, you can be a website designer, you can be someone who does social media management for esports teams, or you can go into apparel. So we also want to do our contribution to empowering that with the community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Troy. And touching on that point, I think mentioning accessibility was absolutely massive there, is that going into schools just opens up those doors for more players just to be able to experience it. And I think there's a person that I really do want to touch on the subject with when it comes down to Gabriel from your side. It's just being able to chat about accessibility into esports. You mentioned a little bit earlier in your brief introduction that you really want to empower Black people to be able to get involved with esports. Now, tell me about the accessibility in esports and why it's so important to try grow this sector of the market.
Thanks, Nika Kane. Well, in terms of accessibility, I'll just give brief background. When we started the organization in 2017, we opted to start with players in CS:GO, and so I'm from Soweto, and one of the challenges that we had in 2017 is that none of the players that we wanted to bring on board had gaming PCs that could actually play CS:GO. They had normal PCs, and on top of that, the internet connectivity as well, was a major stumbling block for us on our first year of operations. So that was pretty much one of the biggest challenge, and it is still today, where basically the biggest barrier for many people in the townships and rural areas to participate in esports is access to infrastructure, access to gaming PCs, to consoles, access to internet connectivity as well. So when we talk about accessibility, that is the biggest challenge thus far. And as an organization, for the past 3 years, what we have been doing I like Cholo's approach when it comes to schools. I think that is awesome. What we have been doing as on our side is that we have been playing around the ideas of having like mini gaming expos, esports and gaming expos in the townships. Because if you think about it, there's pretty much only 2 or 3 main expos in the country, and all of them they happen in the most affluent areas. Where if you stay in Soweto, you have to take like 2 taxis to get there. So we brought them close to home, and through those interaction with people, we realized that there are a lot of young people who aspire to be, esports professionals. Be them becoming casters or graphic designers whatsoever. But their biggest challenge is access to that equipment, access to that internet connectivity. And going back to the story about the team, we eventually had a gaming house, where we'll have all the guys coming in and spend 4 days in a week for them to be able to practice on the equipment that we had in the gaming house, and also that on the gaming house with the internet connectivity. So, and maybe just say this last point, Nick. And the last
Yeah.
point is that when it comes to that, you know, the the biggest the biggest influencer in this case, not for a better word, biggest influencer in this case is the involvement of not just the private sector per se, but is the involvement of government, to ensure that we can be able to basically bring more people in the townships or in rural areas, wherever, into this esport ecosystem. And that basically meaning that we have proper gaming centers, we have a more developed infrastructure for connectivity. Then we'll talk a different story. But until then, I think we will come back probably, the 4 of us or the 5 of us in the next 5 years again, and we'll be here talking about the same thing again. So on our side, we're doing our bit with regard to ensure that we bring in more people into this space. The past 2 or the last 3 weeks or so, we so the last 3 weeks or so, there has been a major challenge because we did like a FIFA series, an online FIFA series, just to test if we can be able to get more people from the township to participate in the online tournament. And there were a lot of people that had interest. And one of the challenges that we had was that many people that didn't have their own consoles, right? So we eventually, sorry. Okay, there's
I think we lost you there, Gabriel, for a
from.
second there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So yeah,
I think we lost you. Go.
so
Please continue, Gabriel.
we had those challenges, but I think one Nick, think those are your talks. Oh no, sorry. Okay, cool. Oh, awesome. No, what I was saying, Nick, was that I think at this stage, I mean, every year, every year, every year, I always say that this is my last year, right? When it comes to this esports thing, because one has pretty much invested everything that he could invest into ensuring that we grow the scene on our side. But up until we get to a point where
I'm not too sure if we lost Gabriel there again, and we'll dive back on as soon as he gets reconnected. Unfortunately,
can you hear
being
me?
online with infrastructure. There we go. We got a little bit. I'm not too sure. It's a bit back and forth at the moment. Gabriel, I'm not too sure if your connection's fine there. Do you mind if we give it 5 minutes and we can jump back on that conversation, Gabriel? For right now, I want to head over to Julio. From your side of things, we've chatted to a lot of NGOs, around Africa at the moment, whether that's Zambia all the way up to Egypt and back to South Africa again.
That's
Here,
it.
from a player's perspective, I want to find out what has your experience been like in this esports space? And you mentioned a little bit earlier, you are still a student in your own right. What is that, third year in financials at the moment? Can you tell us a little bit about that decision, balancing that with esports and how that plays an impact on your life? All right, Julio, I believe your mic is muted there. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I
Sorted.
just didn't want any echo. Yeah. But yeah, so from my side, I think for me, education has always been the most important thing in the world. It's always because when I started, when I was young, I always wanted to be a professional footballer. I always had the love and the passion for football. But yeah, my parents were always strict with me with regards to education. So that's obviously why I always focused on it. But yeah, sadly, my football career didn't work out. I'm very self-critical. And when I got to the age of, I'd say 2021, I was looking at my friends. I know it's not always a great thing to compare, but I just looked at it and I thought, at this age, I should be in Europe. I should be in the first division. I should be at the top club. And I got a huge injury, unfortunately. Actually, sadly, it was my first ever proper injury while I was on trial at a huge club. And it didn't work out for me. And I decided that I still wanted to stay in football. I was too young to be a football coach. And I thought I always had a love and a passion for gaming. And I loved FIFA so much. And I believed in my ability. I believed that I could make something of it. I could become a professional. And that's when I started. I put everything I had into becoming a professional. I was awake for days and nights. When everyone was asleep, I was working. I was studying professional players all over the world. I was watching world champions. I was studying their gameplay, implementing it in my gameplay. And yeah, as many of the guys said earlier on as well, with regards to entering the scene, I always look at my story as well as an individual. I was absolutely nothing. I was a nobody. I didn't know anyone. I was just playing like a normal human being or a normal a youngster. And I decided to play Weekend League, which is popular amongst FIFA. And then that's how I got to know the players. But yeah, as soon as I started playing and I started competing, which again highlights the importance of a regular competition, regular tournaments, the ability to test yourself against the best in the country and then ultimately against the best in the world if possible. So I got scouted by Goliath Gaming while I was playing in the qualifiers for VS Gaming. Luckily, my father told me that he would be able to sponsor me a plane ticket to Johannesburg if I qualified, because we saw the adverts on TV saying 400,000 rand for VS Gaming. Can you do it? Who's going to be the next champion? And I was sitting at home. I was just looking at it, but I knew I wasn't going to play in it. I didn't have the money to fund myself to go there. I still don't have the internet ability up until this day. I still play with LTE. I don't have fiber, which many people know, and it's tough. It's difficult. So just like Gabriel mentioned as well, equipment infrastructure is so important. I mean, luckily I was blessed enough to be able to adapt to the connection, playing against Middle Eastern players, European players, sometimes playing on very high ping against guys with low ping, which makes it difficult. It also takes a toll on you mentally if you're strong enough, which is another ability or characteristic which is so important in esports or in any on any professional level, to put it that way. The ability to have a mind of steel, which is something I also try to adapt along the road. But for me to balance, like you said, Nick, the education and the esports was so important for me because I wanted to excel in both. But then again, it comes down to knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you're not so good at. So when I'm slacking in my education, I would just put a little bit more time into that, just to shape it about 60-40, and vice versa, depending on the situation. But I've always managed to do it well. And I would encourage youngsters to always look at education as, because it's powerful. It can open many doors, like you've mentioned as well, in esports as well. The day maybe when I'm done playing, I can always enter into esports in a financial way or in an accounting field. So for me, coming up into the esports scene, getting signed to Goliath Gaming gave me the platform to succeed, basically. They gave me opportunities. They were sorting out everything for me. I did so well in VS Gaming. Didn't win it, but I finished in the semifinals. And I was so proud of myself. It was a stepping stone to many greater things. And that was in 2018 when I also qualified for the World Cup. It was my first year in esports. I put, like I've mentioned before, studied gameplay. I put so much hours in to make it work. And within 1 year, I made it to the World Cup. The guy that I've studied, the world champion that I studied, August Rosenmeyer, I always mention it because it's a proud moment for me. I stood next to him and I told him, continue what you're doing, keep streaming, keep giving advice, keep coaching. I'm a product of what you've been doing. And I stood next to him. And the following day we played and I managed to beat him. So I think we have lots of talent in Africa, in South Africa, in Egypt, wherever the case may be, Middle East. Just about getting the opportunity and just going out there and producing it and putting in the effort, the hard work and determination and dedication.
It's a very tough thing, Julia, and thank you for your sharing your story essentially with us there. And I think it's so difficult to meet that opportunity with your expectation. You could be the best player of, I'm not even too sure. We can name any game, and if there's no tournaments for that game, you essentially can't become a professional esports in your local environment, which becomes so tricky. If you had to give suggestions or maybe a couple of tips to players to say, what should I focus on, right? I might be finishing high school. I might be one of the best players in my friends group. What do I do from here? Should I be taking a gap year for esports? Should I be pursuing that? Should I be looking over to doing my studies immediately? Do you think it's a balance of both in some way that you're shining example of that at the moment, trying to finish off your degree and making sure that you can take those steps forward? What would your advice be?
Well, like I've mentioned before, it's about knowing yourself. It's also looking at your time schedule. How many hours do you have free on a daily basis? Because sometimes when you're studying at the level that I am with accounting, it's not easy. Many people don't like it. I know there's tougher things in the world as well in terms of studying, but it's all about knowing how you're going to manage it, how you're going to balance it. So if you got the week free and you got weekends free, like for instance, taking myself playing FIFA, I don't play that many hours during the week. I put that aside for my schoolwork or my education, and then weekends, which is weekend league, which we have to play for FIFA players, I'll put everything into that. So I'd say for any individual coming up, if you believe in yourself, I believe anything is possible. Anything is possible. I'm a product of that as well. As long as you put in the time, the effort, the hard work, it is indeed possible. Hopefully you can get, God willingly, you can get the backing, the support, maybe a middleman to get you somewhere, just to push you a little bit closer to where you want to be, towards your dreams, towards your goals, like Goliath Gaming did for me. So I'm forever grateful. So yeah, I'd say it's all about balancing it and believing in yourself. And
perfect.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be done.
Then thanks, Julia. And I find that very interesting. You often lean on Goliath have been such a big integral input for you for your career path and being able to try take that further. And this is something, Yusuf, you alluded to a little bit earlier, is that if organizations want to get involved, they need to be serious about it, and they're going to have to expect to put in a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights of going, what am I doing in this scene? How can I take this forward? How am I going to fund this? I mean, what would your couple of heads up be to those that want to get involved as an organizer, or rather an organization, what is often referred to as a MGO in their own right, to step into the scene? What would you say is your best advice to be able to get involved?
First of all, I salute you, Julio. I can relate to so much of the things you mentioned, especially the ping part, because even if you are the best and your ping is 120 and you're playing against people in Germany, in Italy, or in Spain, or in France, and their ping is 5 or 6, it's a very big obstacle to face, especially mentally, because you always have that little voice in your head telling you that you're at a disadvantage. I can relate to a lot of things you mentioned. For me, this is Africa Career Day. It's not a marketing panel, so I can truthfully tell you that I've invested a lot, not in terms of just money, but in terms of effort and time. and blood, sweat, and tears. I left my studies in my final year. I was a political science and international relations major. I wanted to work in the foreign ministry in Egypt so I can be sort of a middleman between Africans, Egyptians, and people abroad. That was always a target for me, since I always saw us as being misunderstood or misused in terms of our potential. So I had to leave my studies in my final year, and I used my last year of tuitions to start Anubis. And after starting it in 2015, we were spending 10 times as much on participating and winning tournaments than the prize pool itself. So it wasn't financially feasible or viable in any way, shape, or form. So I had to continue losing all of my money. And then we reached a point in 2018 when it was when we were at a very bad time. We lost everything I put in the company, but the good news was that we had a lot of good players. We changed their lives when it comes to how they deal with their family, how they deal with each other, how they deal with society, and most importantly, how they deal with themselves and how they see themselves. So that was a very important milestone for me in terms of building something that can actually succeed. But in terms of scalability, it wasn't good at all. Thankfully, we were saved. We received an investment that was just closed 3 months ago of $450,000 in the past 2 years. We were able to build a state-of-the-art training facility here in Cairo, which is like a gaming house, but it can host 2 teams at the same time. 15 people live here right now. It's changed a lot of things since we have a leased line connection, which reduced our ping from 120, 100, which is the average household ping here in Egypt, to around 50 and 60. It's still high, but at least you can compete at a very high level with that ping, since you don't have the same obstacles you face when you have a very high ping, or as you said, you play on LTE. So God be with you, Julio, to be honest. And I checked your Twitter, and you got 30-0 with an LTE connection, which for me is enough of proof to show that you have what it takes, man. So I salute you a lot. But right now, I think the biggest challenge we're facing is that we don't have localized servers in Africa and the Middle East. I thought from 2015 to 2018 that this was because of safety issues. Because every publisher I met between 2015 2018, every publisher I met said the same thing. Oh, you just had a revolution. Oh, your region isn't that stable. All of these things. In 2019, I essentially found out the truth when one day they built a server in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, which completely destroys any future for Africa, since our ping from Africa to the GCC region is worse than Europe. So when I kept digging and digging and digging, I found out that the truth is that we don't spend money in Africa. Our users don't spend money. We don't have the financial capacity to bring these publishers in because they'd have to build their own infrastructure. So what I essentially found out is that they don't see it as a worthwhile investment for them to come here and build the infrastructure when the users themselves don't even have their own PCs. Like in Egypt, for example, we have 62,000 cyber cafes. Most people don't have their own PCs, and I think that's the same with all the nations in Africa. So the solution is what you're doing right now, Julio, and what we're doing right now in Anubis is reaching a level with all of these disadvantages and actually making it. If that happens, they won't have a choice, because we will show it, like, forcefully. We will show that we have what it takes to reach the highest levels. Of course, it's a very big disadvantage for you as a player, since you won't be able to experience esports properly, because you don't have the same resources and infrastructure as people in Europe and people abroad in the Western world. But I think you should take that to heart as an advantage, because you still have a very big future ahead of you. Like I say to all of our players, you still have a responsibility after you finish your playing career, because let's be honest, we're reaching a point right now as a global society that one day in the next 20 years we will all have the same ping. We will all have an affordable device. This time is coming, you know, and when it comes, I think the main reason us as Africans will be able to not only participate but dominate is that we came from this hardship. We came from like the fact that it's impossible for me when I see it for a European player or an American player right now to play on 70 ping. I've seen very famous streamers and very famous pro players say that they're lagging when their ping is 30 and 40. So the fact that they see that as an obstacle and we live with something 3 or 4 times worse, I think that's good news for our future. It isn't good news for our present, but I think we should take that as an advantage moving forward, and I think it's very good news for our future generations. So we need to keep going. We need to try our best. We need to get the best results in the state we're in right now, because as soon as that state disappears and we have the same resources, we will be able to dominate, not in all esports, but I am very sure that some titles will be released and it will use our culture, you know. Like for us in Egypt, the only game or only sport where from the first to the 10th globally, males and females, that we dominate is squash. And if you look at that sport, you will laugh. And it will be so healthy for you to watch a sport like this. Why? Because in 2004, and I'm sorry if I'm going to make this a bit long, Nick, but I need to tell the story because of what I heard from Julio. In 2004, we weren't placing globally in any squash championships. So the sporting clubs in Egypt decided to stop spending on foreign coaches when it comes to squash. They hired very low tier and very low caliber coaches, local coaches for the players. And what essentially happened after 2004, after we stopped playing with a structure, with a game plan, we stopped all of that. The players went to a global championship with no game plan, with no structure to the way they play the game. They just embraced the chaos of you playing squash, hitting the ball, embracing the chaos, and just adapting over and over with no game plan. And from 2004 until today, from the first to the 10th, in males and females, 8 are Egyptian. Because of that, because we forcefully used our culture to embrace the chaos of squash with no game plan, with no structure, that right now, people from the western side of the world, when it comes to Europe and the US, are copying our style of playing with no structure. Just embrace yourself, embrace your culture, and compete. And I'm very sure that one day we will have an esport like this that will embrace the fact that we're so used to this chaos happening around us, all of these disadvantages, and as soon as the tables turn, we will be able to show our true form. I'm very, very optimistic when it comes to that.
I love that. I mean, I even use the same analogy, and I know this might be a bit weird for those of you who don't know about the series called Dragon Ball Z way back when, is that if there was a character that we were Piccolo. It's the character that has the heavy weighted training clothes. As soon as he takes it off, he can fight a little bit faster and be a little bit more stronger. But yes, I completely wholeheartedly feel that that we deal with so many problems here. And I listened to Yusuf with 50 milliseconds ping. Wow, that sounds like bliss at that point in comparison to us in sub-Saharan Africa with 150, 160 on a good day. And I mean, I think maybe let's lean towards wrapping up the session. I think we've really gone over some fantastic details from across the board, from all the way of north to Africa to the southern side of life. Gabriel, I do want to end with some thoughts on you. We did miss out on a little bit of your chat a little bit early on. I want to hear from your thoughts. In your ideal landscape right now, what do you want to see from esports in South Africa and to be able to see it grow?
Thanks, Nick. First and foremost, I think in order to, grow the local esports scene or the African scene, realistically, we look at a 10-year to 20-year plan, right? And that means that basically having all the key stakeholders involved in the ecosystem. But most importantly, I think it starts with the current players in the ecosystem within just around the continent. Just that collaboration, within the continent of the players in the scene, and having for me, it's like having government involved is critical, as we have seen around all sporting codes. More so here in South Africa, and having the private sector involved as well is critical. Then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we will talk a different story. Probably by then, 5 years from now, Julia will be retiring, and we'll sign him to come to Ekasi Esports and become a coach. But most definitely, I think the future of esports is bright. That's why we're still here, and there will be more champions coming from the continent as well. And I'm for one looking forward to that moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gabriel. Cholwe, from your side of things, I think aspirations for your country, but also your organization, I'd love to be able to hear, ideally, moving into the sector that you're going with schools, being able to take that forward further. Do you see your organization as a potential job creator for future generations, or as a potential inspiration for other organizations to also get involved in the sector?
Yes, I see us as a beacon of hope, in the sense that from the small successes that we keep attaining, and every action that we keep achieving, that other people will be inspired to either start their own organizations or venture into a career in esports. We're privileged to be in this space and to be like the pioneers who are starting the journey. So we take it as a responsibility to also try and pave a very decent foundation for everyone to see where they can fit into the puzzle. So yeah, I really see us as being an inspiration to other people to really start this in Zambia. So far, we've seen a lot of, ever since we started the organization, we've seen a lot of teams come up in the scene. We've seen more players participate in tournaments, acquire equipment, and also play actively in tournaments online, like in Metro State and SCGL. And we've also seen a lot of small tournaments that are happening around the malls every now and then. So that's good progress for us on our state in Zambia as well.
Perfect. And I can't personally wait to see what you guys really make of your scene locally. And I've got to say that across the board, Gabriel, from the work that you guys want to be able to do from the informal sector all the way going to the malls and getting involved with the governments, Julio, as a player, you're very much an inspiration to FIFA players across South Africa that follow you across the board. And I definitely need to take up a game against you in FIFA just to watch myself get demolished sometime. Yusuf, from the other side of things, I got to say, I'm very excited to take the conversation forward after this as well, just to hear a little bit more about the sector and what's happening on the northern side of Africa. I think the thing about being African and involved in esports is that we all see esports as this journey that is, it's there, right? It's something that we're chasing, and it's a big light, as I think Cholwe even alluded to a little bit earlier, that we want to chase this esports dream. Sometimes there's peaks, sometimes there's valleys, sometimes there's hills that we need to get over to reach that point, whether that's infrastructural, whether that's just us being able to have a PC, or just being able to have enough contact with players. So from my side of things, I do want to close this off by saying thank you to each and every one of you, and please continue your work inside the esports environment, whether that be by professional, by hobby, or just by pure for the love of it, right? I mean, that's what we love doing across the board. So thanks to each and every one of you for being here with us today. And then also thank you to Africa Games and Esports Career Day. It has been an absolute pleasure being able to present this from my side of things. And look at this amazing panel. I can't say that I've dealt with a better one in my time. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you across the board. And thanks to everybody at rAge as well. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That was a great session. I got super excited around where esports is at on the continent and where it's going to be going. And it just tease us up perfectly for the next session that we've got. Coming up now is our second session on esports. It's how to grow esports career opportunities in Africa. Joining me is Barry Luzada from Metal State from South Africa, Desiree Kusawa from ESL in France, one of the biggest esports organizations in the world. And joining us from Senegal is Kofi Latsu with Game Camp Cities, doing incredible stuff on the continent. So let me bring them all into the studio. There is everyone. Desiree, we just need to get your camera up. And Kofi, you're on mute there, so let's get that off. And hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out. We're going to be discussing career opportunities in esports and gaming across the continent. What I thought would be a really good way just to kick it off, though, is just introductions. So if I could just start with each of you and ask you just to give a little bit of an introduction around who you are, the role you play within the esports ecosystem, that would be a great way to start. And Desiree, maybe let's just start with you, coming to us from Paris.
Why me? Okay.
Biggest one.
Good morning. Yeah, it's really great to be here because I really want to help Africa to grow in esports. You know, it's really something I'm trying to do since many years. I started to work in esports 20 years ago. So yeah, I'm now really I don't know. Perhaps the oldest African esport guy here. And yeah, I started with something like it was a passion. It was just to gather some friends around esports, and then we built here in France the biggest LAN party here with now 2,500 players every year in Poitiers here in France. And 6 years ago, I was reached by ESL. ESL is, you know, the main and biggest esports operators in the world, and they asked me to help them to develop esports in France. Let's say the events part of ESL in France. So now I'm managing director of ESL France, and I'm still trying to consolidate ESL esports ecosystem here in France. But beside that, I also try to help the French esports ecosystem to be more structured. I'm part of the France Esports. France Esports is the French associations who is gathering all the promoters, publishers on teams, on players in France, like a federation. It's not a federation, but it's like a federation. I'm part of the board of this association. So these are the main mission and the main operation I'm working on in France. But there is another one. Let's say it will be another story.
Great. Thank you, Desiree. And I know you've been participating in a lot of these sessions and talks around African games and African esports. You know, the fact that you're from the continent, you understand the continent, and you're helping us, even though you're based there in France, obviously with ESL. Kofi, maybe to you, and if you could just tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yes, thank you for the invitation, Kevin. So I'm Kofi. I'm the founder, the creative director of Game Camp Cities Agency, which is a pioneer gaming agency here in West Africa. In Senegal, we start our adventure, I think that right now, 10 years ago. And during those 10 years, we expand in a network of 10 countries. Our activities is always based on what I can call grassroots esports. So we try to do events who are really democratic and who permit everybody to have a first contact with competitive gaming. With just a little numbers so far, we produced 100 plus physical events in West Africa and in North Africa. With 1,000 hours of educative content, because in each event that we produce, we are really focused also on the education part of the industry, with little talk, little conferences, and also try to share knowledge for people, for educate them on this big and vast ecosystem about gaming. From my side, personally, I begin to do that as Desiree, like a passion. It was very difficult at the beginning because you know that video game genre in Africa is not something who make money. So my core job was most graphic design and communication. This is where I take my first, in fact, financial resource for investment in a little event that we start 10 years ago called Game Camp. So it was a little event of 3 days. And doing this event very easily, we succeed to expand very well in different countries because it was easy to replicate this type of events. And since 2016, where things begin to pivot because we understand more our ecosystem, we try also to compete on esports internationally. In 2016, we qualified Senegal and Togo on the World Esports Electronic Sport Games. Competition is worldwide esports competition produced by Alibaba. And since this period, we understand really what is the standards of esports, in fact, in Africa. From this perspective, we begin to pivot our activities more in an agency. So we begin to work with brands. And right now, since exactly 2 years, we begin to advise governments about the strategy about esports, specifically the Senegal government and sometimes the French government who has already activities in West Africa. Wow.
Great, thank you, Kofi. That's very comprehensive work you've been doing. And now I'll ask Barry. And Barry, I think you're probably the most well-known to the majority of our audience here, which is people from South Africa. But we have a big audience also coming across from Africa. And so you're new to them. So maybe just tell us a little bit and your history, because you do have great experience from playing all the way up to running.
Sure. I mean, I was going to say, how do I even follow that? There's like all these CVs literally as long as my arm all the way up to France. Holy cow. Anyway, so Barry here from Metal States. I have been involved in competitive gaming in South Africa. I started actually running competitions before I played competitively at rAge. I remember the first years of rAge that I was involved at rAge, where I was running all the battlefield comps in the land section of rAge almost 20 years ago. And after a couple of years, in running those competitions, I was responsible for getting the service from Len, asking and dealing with marketing and sponsorship from Lauren and Michael, and going out and getting all the prize money for those. And then at the end of it, I was like, I'm still actually young enough to play these games. So I started to compete. And for the next, I think, six to 7 years at rAge, built my esports career off the back of the competitions that were run at rAge, where my team competed in the ESL Nations Cup. We were the first African team Southern African team to win an ESL competition. Competed in the Asia Pacific Finals in Singapore, Taiwan. Sorry, made some friends there from Singapore, and then competed going overseas with Bravado to DreamHack to ESL. Being able to see with these big eyes what these international tournament organizers like ESL and PGL and DreamHack were all doing, and came back to South Africa, started to cast and get involved in the production side of things, and then decided to take it to the next level and start up Metal State, where we run local tournaments and sub-Saharan African tournaments for PUBG Mobile, pretty much every game you can think of. To this day, I think Metal State's given away over 2 million rand in prizes, cash prizes. So, from our side, it's just being involved, my side particularly, being involved in trying to grow gaming and esports in South Africa and Africa, to try and bring it to the masses in Africa and just show them just what a beautiful game it is.
Great. I think that's really important, and you're doing very important work, as all of you guys are. And I think, you know, the important thing that we're trying to get across for today is that this is a real industry with real career opportunities, and it is growing dramatically. What I've said before is the esports and gaming world was growing even before the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, it gave acceleration, and gaming became much more important. But I'm just interested just to hear from you, Barry, first, is what's your view about the esports scene in Africa? How's it looking for you? You know, where are we as far as our development path goes? You know, what have you seen? And I know that you now have extended out of South Africa a lot. You have a lot of people participating across the continent. Our company, Big Five Games and Metal State, are partnering to roll out with Kucheza Gaming, a schools esports league in Nigeria. So what's your general view, and what are you feeling about esports on the continent?
So I think you'll remember last year as well, there was that Nikon that I went to as well, that I went to kind of go and check out in Kenya. One of the things I've realized is that Africans as a whole they're just super excited about this esports and gaming thing. They just want to be involved, and they just want to show the world what they're capable of and what they're able to do. And I was listening to the previous talk with Yusuf talking about things, you know, things that we deal with on a daily basis that is just not in the minds of a European or American streamer or gamer, where lack of power, access to internet, access to hardware, mobile phones, consoles, PCs, those kinds of things. I walked around the LAN at Nikon, and just the way that we improvised, and like players had improvised and built their own sim racing rigs out of wood, and they were walking in there with 30-inch, 50-inch TVs into a LAN so that they could play around, but they were down for it. They were ready for it, and working with these players in the leagues as well. They're just the nicest, friendliest people to work with, because they so badly just want to be recognized. They want to have these competitions available to them. They want to be able to access well-run events that, like for the likes of Metal State, ACGL, those guys, we're all trying to just bring to Africa to try and, they unite us, and, they make us, when you're playing these games, it doesn't matter who you are behind the screen. It's just how good you are. What's your KD? What's, how are you able to support and play around the game and help each other? It's that game sense that just removes it equalizes the playing field. Like I've always said, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, how fat you are, how thin you are, you're still all the same. You still run the same, you still jump the same. Everything is just the equal playing field in gaming. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about gaming, is that, the teams and that those that are involved in this, they have one purpose, and that is just to be number one. It doesn't matter how they get there, who they're playing against, it's just to be number one.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Kofi, I could see you just agreeing with a lot of what's been said there. So what's your reflection? You're really pushing esports hard on the continent at the moment. I know you really are.
Yes, I listened since this morning, many talk, and also I listened to Barry about what he said. But for me, I'm not really on the same page, and I will try to explain why, in fact. Because generally, when people talk about esports in Africa, they think that everybody is exactly in the same page. And in fact, it's not really the case. And I can tell you that because myself, I put my feet in 10 countries in Africa.
Kofi, let's just check. You there? No? Anyone else? Yeah, the guys are with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Okay, we lost Kofi. So they're the challenges, right? Sitting in Senegal, connectivity issue. Looks like something happened there. So Desiree, let me just come to you while we wait for Kofi to pop back in. What are you seeing in esports globally? I mean, how big is this growing? How big is the opportunity? If there's parents here in Africa looking at their kids wanting to get in gaming and esports, how do you reassure them that this is really an enormously, a big industry that has huge opportunities for their kids?
Yeah. Of course, esports is now something like the biggest video game industry. Let's say on the business part. If you really want to see how the esport is growing now, you can see that in Europe, in US,